And Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. We haven't seen any really delicious Trump tweets lately, and today is October 9th. We've been keeping our eyes out, but it's been a lot of victory laps around the track and nothing really that we wanted to say that would move us forward in the conversation.
Well, Barnum and Bailey has nothing on the three-ring circus that the master of ceremonies, President Trump, is conducting. The Brett Kavanaugh circus, oh my goodness. We get to see Diane Feinstein, the Chinese spy, leaping through rings of fire. We get to see the Democratic candidates for president throwing themselves out as Spartacus.
Well, in the end, we said it wouldn't matter because the process really showed who the left are and has pretty well separated the left from the right. But we do have three topics today.
But, we had said we didn't know if he'd ever make it out of committee or he'd get past the Senate. But really, this three-ring circus has been beautiful, the way that Trump has conducted it, so that everyone has come out and shown their true colors, and he didn't care. What's the first thing he does after he gets Kavanaugh in, who's his now new best buddy, who is shining his shoes with his tongue? Kavanaugh hates Democrats. If it has anything to do with liberals and Democrats...
How can you say that, Thomas?
Oh, after what they put him through? He had worked for them before, and he goes both ways. And remember, he's never been really much... He's never been a lawyer, a judge. He's never tried a case until he came into...
He's a clerk.
He was a clerk. And so what did Trump do? Trump chose the worst candidate there, threw him out under the bus. They all ran over him. They all exposed themselves, and he still got elected, which means... it is next to impossible for Trump not to succeed, not to win. It is ridiculous. In this case that he won is amazing. And then right after that, what's the first thing he does?
Well,
he says, Ruth, get ready. You're next.
That's right. But now look, I like people to know where we're going with our discussion before we go 40 minutes. So today we have three topics we're going to talk about. I want to get an update on Rat Rosenstein, also known as Rod Rosenstein. I also want to talk to you about the new revelations, and the people who think that they're news, but really they're not. They just report olds. And I want to talk about Daniel Jones, Diane Feinstein, Fusion GPS, and Oleg Deripaska, your favorite subject. And then I think we need to drill down a little bit more on this Chinese-Israeli Talpiot connection. So let's get Rod Rosenstein front and center. What is up with his plane flight with Trump?
Well, as you know, we warned Trump that the new Air Force One was going to be filled with surveillance that will go straight to President Xi in China and Israel through Unit 8200 and all the Talpiot startups. So what did we tell him? Take the QRS-14 out of your plane, the uninterruptible autopilot. Make sure that you absolutely are not being surveilled in your plane. And so the one place that Trump may not be surveilled at this moment is his plane. And so he took Rod Rosenstein on his plane. And what did he say? I liked that some authors have been doing their little versions of what might have been said. But we can go into that, but I'll just tell you the details of what was said instead of trying to play like I'm Rat Rosenstein, because I can't really play that deep of a swamp rat myself.
Now, this is your speculation based upon many years of your personal research.
Yes, and I've ran this by numerous conclave members. What did President Trump say to Rat Rosenstein? He didn't say anything. He just sat and listened. And Rat came in, like he's been doing all over the news, saying, I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. Oh, well, when I said it, I was only kidding. Well, when I said it, I was only being sarcastic. I only said it because Andrew McCabe told me to do it, and I didn't want to do it because Andrew was already under 5 investigations. I didn't want to be... He came and he cried like a baby before Trump. As we know, there have been at least 5 times in the last 2 weeks that he has resigned, and no one will take his resignation. Why won't they take his resignation? Because they're going to let him try to get out of the mess that he's in. Because what they have done is they've pathetically attempted to corner Trump, and when they painted themselves into that corner, they looked around them and they saw, oops, Trump's not in the corner. Trump's nowhere near the corner. Trump's not guilty. There's no Russian collusion. As a matter of fact, it's Democratic collusion. And now my favorite Russian oligarch has now come out as clearly the Russian influence in the election. Oleg Deripaska, who was Robert Mueller's friend, he had worked with before when he had radicalized him to be a spy for America in Iran. Oleg Deripaska, that is. And then he was used during the election. And John McCain, the reason John McCain is hiding out in heaven or hell or wherever he is, let's just say because
Maybe
it was
he's
all
down
becoming...
in Paraguay with the Bushes.
Hey, probably in Paraguay.
And did you tell me once that Angela Merkel has a place down there?
Oh, right next to the Bushes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they also say that's where the black slime comes from. But who knows about that? The black glue. The stuff that they say is, the evil, conscious black goo of the earth. Well, I don't know about that. But I do know that below where the Bushes and the Merkels have their place and a number of other, what we would call rogue CIA oligarchs, the second largest freshwater aquifer in the world that has yet to be tapped. So very convenient if you're planning World War III and Armageddon to have a lot of water beneath you in Paraguay. But anyway, John McCain in Paraguay or wherever is the person who started all of this. He's the one who gave them Oleg Deripaska's name. As a matter of fact, we pointed out and put up on Truth News headlines when John McCain went to meet Oleg Deripaska during the election. And he flew to one country, flew to another country in a different airplane that wasn't, being on the Armed Services Committee. He thought he was a general, and he should be locked up, even in his casket, for all the violations of the Logan Act, that he thought he was running this country militarily. And so he met, after secret maneuvers, literally 3 different boats he took to try to lose anyone taking pictures of him, when he then finally got on Oleg Deripaska's boat, just days before Oleg Deripaska met with Eric Prince, which Eric Prince got called before the principal, Robert Mueller, and chewed out for having a meeting with Oleg Deripaska. How dare he, Eric Prince, who works for Trump and is supporting Trump even during the election, how dare he meet with the man that the CIA and the FBI tried to turn against Trump to get the dirt on Paul Manafort? So this is all known by Rod Rosenstein. So this is all in the conversation between Rosenstein and Trump.
Does Rod Rosenstein understand that most Americans that are awake out here understand what's going on?
No, he has no idea. He doesn't know what's going on. He's not the brightest of the cabal, okay? He is certainly not the sharpest tool in that shed. And so he's made huge, gigantic mistakes, but he has followed orders. And he's followed orders even when he had to get up before the public and say utterly stupid things contemptuously and then get really angry and defend his position, which is an undefendable position. So anyway, he's on Air Force One. Why did Trump do that? Because he wanted to have a secret conversation with him that he was recording. Trump was recording that conversation. Here's a nickel. I bet a nickel. Trump was recording the conversation. And why was he recording the conversation? Because he's finally going to use the very tactics that Rod Rosenstein, Mueller, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, all of them use, which is blackmail. And so now Trump got him. Matter of fact, he probably even told him at the beginning of the conversation.
Well, I wouldn't call this blackmail. I would call it using it as leverage.
Yes, it's leverage, but it's blackmail, leverage. And he probably told him he was recording it. But that didn't stop Rosenstein from spilling his guts because he knows that he can be fired right now and never, ever, ever, just like Comey, get another job except to run for president.
Are you kidding? Fired? That's all he's worried about?
Yes, that's all he's worried about.
He needs to be worried about military tribunals and his own life and death.
Well, you see, his wife will then lose her jobs. She's another D.C. fixer. So Rod Rosenstein was in there telling Trump, oh, no, it's okay. I'll be glad to step down if you want. And Trump said, oh, no, you're not. You're not going to step down.
Do you think he ran home and told Lisa Barsumian, his wife, all the details of their meeting?
Lisa Barsumian was listening on the wiretap of his phone of Rod Rosenstein recording the conversation with Trump. And this is the beautiful part of it. After threatening to do this, he did it.
Now, Thomas.
No, I guarantee it.
You're implying that Rod Rosenstein left his phone on or whatever recording device while he's in the meeting with Trump.
No, it was a pen. It was a CIA recording pen.
This is crazy.
No, it's not crazy. Rod Rosenstein is so desperate that look at the things he's done. He put his entire career on the line. He's put his life on the line. He could be hung for what he has done. And this went on for a long time. And the great thing is that Rosenstein is so stupid that he believes this is his last attempt. It's his last ditch attempt. It is the death rattle in his throat when he says, "Mr. President, I would be happy to step down." You see where he just said that? He didn't, so he won't be fired. And it will be that he wants Trump to tell him to step down, and then he wants it recorded. That's the last thing that Comey had. Remember, Comey perjured himself 3 times, did the stupid thing about the lies about Hillary Clinton's email, and then got himself fired by telling Trump lies over and over again, and then by releasing the leaks to the New York Times through Daniel Richman and the whole thing.
And then Trump had him sit out in the audience to watch this rally.
Well, you see, Rod Rosenstein needs to understand that just like Brett Kavanaugh, who has been brought to heel, he has been curbed, he has been trained, and now he's totally against Brett Kavanaugh is against all Democrats. I don't care who you are, any leftist, socialist, fascist, Democrat, Bernieite, whoever, it doesn't matter. He's going to hate all of them for the rest of his life. Okay. Now, what's happening with Rosenstein? Trump is turning Rosenstein. Trump is letting him know that he's giving him as much rope as he wants, but he's going to hang unless he pleads as a star witness in the grand jury indictment against the conspiracy that he was helping lead. And that is what Trump is waiting on. Some one of these people is going to come forward. James Baker's came forward a bit. Bruce Orr a little bit. Andrew McCabe, we haven't really heard if he's turncoat yet. But we do know that Rod Rosenstein is the weakest link in that cabal that goes all the way back to the early 90s. It has been stealing patents, controlling surveillance and attacks of Americans through that surveillance, through all of the corrupt activity of Uranium One with Andrew McCabe being covered and covering for Robert Mueller. All of that, he's right there. He's been there the whole time. He knows everything. He is a key player and he is weak. And they can take him down. And if they take him down, and that's what Trump is doing, Trump is softening him up like a bad piece of meat being beat with a hammer to soften it up. You know those old meat hammers we used to use? Well, that's what Trump is doing to Rat Rosenstein. And Rat Rosenstein, when he turns on Mueller, is going to turn in 911. And therefore, Trump, if he takes down Rosenstein in the proper fashion, and Rosenstein doesn't quit, even without permission, I'm turning in my resignation if you accept it. Notice, 5 of those, but none, I quit. Why? He can't quit. He is the last defender. He is the last man on the bridge. Mueller has gone down. He's shown who he is. Rosenstein has gone down. It's just a matter of time. As soon as Trump releases the text messages of Rosenstein, McCabe, Comey, and the others, as well as Bruce Orr's testimony, as well as the 20 pages completely unredacted from the FISA warrant 702 Title I on Carter Page that Rat Rosenstein signed, Rosenstein is going to fry. It's just a matter of time. It's just the only problem we have is out of 117,000 people in the Department of Justice, we can't find one honest one that can step forward and say, Mr. President, I will be glad to prosecute Hillary Clinton. Because not a one of the 117,000 people in the DOJ has come forward with whistleblowing material to put those pigs away. And if you can't put them away, and you have the material and access to it, well, then you're complicit.
Isn't Huber supposed to be investigating all this? How come we haven't heard from him?
Huber is only there for the indictments that are brought by Michael Horowitz, but he's also there to help Loffman, in moving forward on the leaks. There have been no indictments, nothing on the leaks. There have been nothing on the FISA warrant. There's been nothing on the conspiracy. There's been no indictment of Christopher Steele. There's been nothing really done except that all the evidence is sitting out there for all of us to look at, to get really upset with if you're impatient. But the dominoes, when they fall, the first domino is the key. And whether it's James Baker, who was also complicit in all of this, he could be it, could be Rat Rosenstein, because he is a rat. And he should live up to his name.
Could be Diane Feinstein and Daniel Jones.
Diane Feinstein
doesn't look too well these days.
She's going to disappear probably like McCain. Why? Because she can't get out of the crimes that we now know that she's committed.
A lifelong crime spree.
Correct.
That woman has been a Chinese operative at least for 20 years with her Chinese spy assistant.
Absolutely. And McCain and her might as well have been sleeping in the same bed together. So McCain, who helped start the Russian dossier with Dianne Feinstein's help out of the Senate Intelligence Committee. We'll go into all of that in a minute. You have it on the list.
And don't take pity on her because she's old.
No. As a matter of fact, she is a criminal who needs to hang. She should not be able to finish her life in peace seeing the many deaths that she has caused. Same thing with John McCain.
Okay. So the thing about this Oleg Deripaska story that's now coming up through the independent media, and when I looked at it and they're talking about Franklin Foer and Slate, I just want to bring it to everybody's attention. Thomas, you've been talking about this for well over a year. So, you can continue to look at this thing called news and see the names that Thomas has talked to you about over the last year come to the forefront, or you might dip into the citizen intelligence reports we've already done and get the names. We've already done the investigations and the reports. Our partnership with the Americans for Innovation, plus our early intelligence reports, lays out the crime to the detail. Names, indictable evidence, it's all there. So you decide, are you ready to see full truth? Or do you want to go back to the comfort of watching these sappy places like Drudge or listening to fake Fox News? You need to make a decision as a citizen. Are you going to get ahead of this truth, or are you going to continue to be mind-numbed robots of the mainstream media?
Look what is happening to the NFL, to Hollywood, to the sex mongers in Hollywood, to the criminal racketeering in Hollywood. It's collapsing because the person, the grassroots person, the common person says, no, you're not going to get my money, you're not going to get my attention. So turn off your TV, turn off the news so that it goes into oblivion where it belongs. Now, the article we want to give a shout out, that was the Caller, wasn't it, who did that article?
No.
Who was it?
Oh, yeah, it was. The Daily Caller. Yeah, I'm glad it finally came up, but hello.
And as you said, it's a tip of the iceberg. It's nice that they finally put it together, but that's like 1/10 of what we told you.
Oh my gosh, when are they going to fully expose Dmitry Alperovich?
He's in the news again. He and FireEye, so CrowdStrike and FireEye again comes up, and they are touted for being the number one people in the world for cyber warfare. No. What they really found out recently is what we had already told you. Perfect example. When Dmitry Alperovich, after he had already planted the Russian bot footprints, he planted bots into the DNC server, the Democratic National Committee server, but he did that back in April of 2015, actually. And no one seems to know this but us, but he went there and did that, and he did that because they had found out that they had been hacked. Well, at that time they had been hacked, but what they really found out is that there were courtesy messages going out to China from every single communication from the DNC and from Hillary's server and from John Podesta's server and their iPads and their BlackBerries. Well, how is that happening? We've pointed that out now. There's a tiny little chip, a mechanical engine riding on a microprocessing chip that is in most routers in America now. If you don't have a Cisco router, which you had one then created by America, if you had another router, it was probably the chip was created by China. But anyway, this was all going out. Everybody knew it. And so what happened there was that Dmitry Alperovich came in and placed his Falcon spyware on it, which is basically a virus control system, but it's also spyware. So the second he put it on the DNC from a distance, from a phone, from a distance, he went into that server because he had already been there and he already had, PC Anywhere on it. And he went into it and he said that he put on his proprietary system called Falcon. This proprietary system is a piece of garbage, but one thing it does do is it takes everything going on there and sends it to Dmitry Alperovich so that he can observe everything. So after that, Nancy Pelosi demanded that 80 different Democratic congressmen and their aides, part of the
Democrat. Trump wants you to say Democrat.
Demon
Democrat.
rat. I got to just
rat.
change it. Demon rat.
Yeah.
Demon rat. The demon rats in the House were told by Nancy Pelosi that they all had to go over to Dmitry Alperovich's system called Falcon. And so to this very day, he is spying on most of the people in the Congress. And that is the same type of thing that Imran Awan was doing. So I cannot believe that Brian Pagliano, Dmitry Alperovich, and Imran Awan weren't working together. Not possible. Not possible. So when they tell you that Dmitry Alperovich has his system on the DNC, that's the tip of the iceberg. Okay? And we've described these things in great detail, and that he was the head of the tech department for the Atlantic Council, for heaven's sakes. And he and Alexandria Chalupa, who are both of the Atlantic Council, started working together with the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, in April of 2015. That has now come out. We were the only ones who said that because we saw it in the news. And when you see these things and you then study them right then, if you study them quickly, you may find the evidence which will then disappear later. And that's what we do. The second we hear a peep in the direction of the rat lines of evil, we go and we look. And before they cover their trail, we often find that trail. So we told you about all of this. So now, what was it you wanted me to elaborate on? That article was...
Well, I'm just going to say, you're so right, because the other day we busted Axiom, this company Axiom, and we started researching it. And sure enough, you go back to their website and they have scrubbed, within a few days, portions of it. So that shows you how quickly our intel is getting out. It is making a difference.
Oh, there was a piece of news, though. And this new piece of news, we did not know. We could have speculated, but we didn't know that the group that is run by Daniel Jones, who was Dianne Feinstein's intelligence staffer in the Senate Intelligence Committee, he started his own company. One of them is DIP, and the other one is Penn Quarter Group. And Penn Quarter Group took $50 million from George Soros, Oleg Deripaska, and Hollywood moguls to continue the work of GPS, Fusion GPS, to attack Trump. And this is after he was elected. So the opposition research goes on to this very day, and it's been fed to Mueller this entire time. But we found out that the second that they got their money, which was early on through a group called DIP, they paid Franklin Foer from Slate magazine, an online magazine. I told you that he was given money, and that we knew that he would be someone fingered as one of the press that had been given money to literally run black ops against Trump during the election. So Franklin Foer is the man who magically came up with unbelievable amounts of money to magically find a server in the Trump Tower that was communicating with Alpha Bank in Russia.
And
all
remember
lies.
when
all
the
lies.
article first came out, how they had all the fancy charts of how they were looking at all the pings from the computer that were going back and forth to Russia. They made it look really real.
He had paid top computer scientists in major universities to come up with those charts and all that information, which was all fake. It wasn't Trump's computer. It wasn't in his tower. It was an ad agency that he worked with that was pinging to executives of banks to come to Trump Tower in any country. And this was already disproven by Comey himself, who on the day, well, actually, Franklin Foer blew it. He was going to release it on October 30th as an October surprise. He couldn't help himself. He started releasing it in July and then kept blabbering his mouth all the way up. And then he made his big release October 30th. And Comey came out and said it was fake October 31st.
Okay.
2016.
I don't know where you feel the wrap-up point of that is.
Well, I just want to say that was good that came out. But if they do what we say, and if they simply demand the bank records of Fusion GPS, you will see the criminal cabal that has paid for and created this entire attempt at a coup d'etat, and the Russian meddling. There was Russians meddling. That was Oleg Deripaska, Natalia Veselnitskaya. She worked directly for Fusion GPS. She paid Fusion GPS for a lobbying issue she had with Previon as well as the Magnitsky Act. And she met with Glenn Simpson, the head of Fusion GPS, before and after the meeting with Donald Jr. Trump in Trump Towers, where, in fact, it was being surveilled by Robert Hannigan of the British General Communications Headquarters, which is their NSA. He quit immediately after Trump was elected because of his international crimes, which should end the Five Eyes altogether. But at this point, we have Sir Richard Dearlove coming out saying that Trump needs babysitting. Richard Dearlove, you are the criminal behind Spygate. You are the one giving Christopher Steele his advice. You're the one who told Christopher Steele exactly how to do it. You're the one who involved Andrew Wood, who involved Alexander Downer, who involved Joseph Mifsud. So Richard Dearlove, Sir Richard Dearlove, ex-head of the MI5, member of the Privy Council of the Queen, you should just be quiet, because we know who you are.
We know who you are, and what we want to know is, did the Queen give you the orders to spy on Trump and to take down his administration, or did you just do this on your own? Were you freewheeling it, Dearlove? Okay, now, all right, here's the question. I want to know, are the Israelis taking our intellectual property and selling it or giving it to the Chinese?
Well, here's the sad news. We've reported this. We already done the intelligence reports on this. Look up our intelligence report on Talpiot, and we'll show you pictures of Intel, Intel Inside, the number one microprocessing chip in America, which is supposed to be clean and clear and not have a backdoor in it. It does have a backdoor. It's called a mechanical engine, an ME, and they admit it. We've done reports on that, and we've shown you this is the truth. And then we also show you how they swear that they only work here in America. Lie. Their number one facility is now in Israel. So Israel has complete access to everything that Intel microprocessing chips have access to, which is everything. Now, the only thing that they don't have access to, they do, and I'll tell you how they do, is what is made in China. And as you know, recently there's been, the president said, get all chips out of everything military. And they're acting like that's news. He did that within the first months of becoming the president. And now they're reporting on it 2 years later.
It's true.
We reported on this a long time ago. Why? We reported on it specifically when he went to China and made $850 billion worth of deals, and none of them panned out. Why? Because he told them it was all predicated on one thing and one thing alone. Nothing you sell in America can ever use your microprocessing chips again, because you are cheaters, liars, you have a backdoor in them, and we know this.
But what if the Israelis continue to give away our technology?
Well, hang on. ZTE, Huawei, and the other 8, as well cell phone manufacturers, as well as all the TV manufacturers and the computer manufacturers in China, all have these chips in them. So recently, Trump dumped China for the 5G contract in America. Anybody notice that besides us? It was down to the last vote. And then what did he do? He met with ZTE and he met with Huawei, and he said, listen, this is what I'm going to do. You've already been kicked out of the country. I'm going to let you come back in when you use our chips, but you're going to have to prove it. And we're going to have to send people to your country if you're going to make them there to watch you, or you're going to have to make them in America. And so that's the reason Taiwan's largest tech company just moved to America. And they did what Trump said. And early on, the military did what Trump said. They got all of the chips out because why?
Did they get those QRS-11s out of everything?
Well, that's Hillary's, and that's different.
Okay.
So we'll go there in a second. So the chips that were when the giant Navy ships were running into things, we told you it was because of the Chinese chips, and we told you look closely. There'll be a Chinese ship watching it to see if they can in fact cause the wreck. And then recently, what happens? They cut us off by 45 feet, cutting in front of one of our destroyers, one of our ships. Why did they do that? To see if they could jam them, to see if they could control them. They took over their controls. And that's been going on because China is pushing the issue to say, look, we already have all of your IP. We're in all of your microchips. we'll take your microchips out of our Chinese-made products, which, by the way, is something to the effect of 85% of computers and 85% of phones, cell phones, and 75% of computers are made and assembled in China. So when they assemble them, they get the IP of everything in that computer. And this is how they were doing it. They became our manufacturing arm, and so therefore we had to give them our IP. Plus, that isn't how they got the IP. They got the IP because they had the chips, and they went in and they can look at anybody's anything and steal it. Military, anything. Corporate, anything. It doesn't matter. They have the hardware. It's hardwired. It is hardwired into the microchips, and the microchips that write on the microchips, and the microchips that write on the microchips. So, what is going on is the following. When Intel started to be made in Israel, Israel got control of everything, China included. Because China now, we don't trust their chips, but we trust Intel chips, and Intel chips are made by Israelis. Let's just point out that the Israeli Secret Service, their cyber warfare unit, Unit 8200, 1 million people. Okay? That's half the people we have in our military, the largest military in the world. They have 1 million cyber spies in training. And then when they finish that training, if they enter into a special training called Talpiot, they train for 7 years, and then they leave that cyber warfare training, and they are given infinite venture capital, and they come either to Silicon Valley, Hollywood, Washington, D.C., or China. And what do they do there? They have 75% of the successful tech startups in the world last year were Israeli Talpiot startups. Now, they're not going to tell you they're Talpiot. They're going to say, oh, 2 really nice guys, or this woman and these 2 guys started this company. No, that's a lie. Look at who they are. These are cyber warfare experts trained by Unit 8200 and given infinite startup funds.
Is this group causing harm to the United States and its citizens?
This group is taking over the world.
Okay, so then they're our enemy. So why can't we just call it out as it is?
Because of the senior executive service members know that nobody makes decisions in D.C. except Trump. Everybody else just does what has been done and make sure that you do not prosecute or point out the guilt of your enemies because you're doing it too. That's standard operating procedure. Trump is the first one to come in and say, no, we're going to change things now. No, things don't change now. Eric Holder, 7 years he hid the Fast and Furious evidence so that it could lapse and he couldn't be charged with it. That's standard operating procedure for an attorney general working for Barack Obama, who was definitely rogue CIA before he ever ran, even for any political office. And Eric Holder, of course, is rogue CIA. Look at what he was doing. He's a gun runner. He's a drug smuggler.
Can we get back to Israel?
Yeah, okay.
Because I'm very concerned. If this is what's going on, then they are as much our enemy as the Brits are, trying to overthrow the president. And we need to start calling this out and not be afraid of, are they Zionists?
Now, let's go back to that, what you just said. These Israelis who are doing this, these corporatists, they're not Jews, they're not Hebrews. They're like the Pope. The Pope isn't Catholic. He doesn't believe in Jesus. I'm sorry, he doesn't. Look at his words. We've already demonstrated that. So the people leading these things are not even what they say they are, like the rhinos who lead the Republican Party or the socialists, fascists who lead the Democratic Party. They're not what they say they are. So when you say that Intel chips are being made in Israel, that isn't saying that the Israelis are making Intel chips. No, this is a corporation doing it. And what is that corporation? They are Zionists. Who are Zionists? Who's the biggest Zionist in the world? Brits and the Queen's Privy Council. So who is behind this? Of course, it's the Brits. Who's getting the oil out of the Golan Heights? That would be Jacob Rothschild.
Are you telling me that the Queen hides behind Zionists?
The Queen is a Zionist.
Okay, so what we have to do as thinking people is get rid of the labels and look at their deeds.
Yes. Now, let's go into the great detail here. How did Intel get sent there? Because we found out in America that Intel was putting mechanical engines on their chips, and so they came out and said, oh, we're not going to do it anymore. We're going to let the Israeli corporations do it. And who started it? Of course, they first said, oh, it's going to be super secret because, the Israelis are our friends. And Unit 8200, the Israeli Secret Service, oh, we can trust them. So we're simply going to make them in Israel and still continue to put the mechanical engines on them. Now, let's go back a bit. Intel, completely fake company. That is nothing more than the Highlands Forum Group. What's Highlands Forum or Highlands Group? That's In-Q-tel. That is the CIA's DARPA. So DARPA and In-Q-tel created Intel and all microprocessing companies in America because they are national security. They are behind every weapon. No weapon can work without them. So when they allowed this to go out into the internet and cell phones and our little digital devices, that was a huge mistake on their part. They let weaponized things go out. So what do? They always have a backdoor built into them. So before the military allows DARPA or In-Q-tel to use their companies with infinite venture capital to put these things out in the market, which, by the way, is always a for sure deal, then the people on the inside buy into these companies, and then when they go public on the stock market, they turn from millionaires to billionaires. That's Eric Schmidt's story. He was at Bell Labs. Now, nobody knows how much money he has, and nobody even knows what he's doing. I'm going to go there in a minute. Why China? I'm building up to China. Sorry. It takes a lot to build up to China. So, the manufacturing in America was controlled by In-Q-tel and DARPA for the Intel processors. But when they got busted, just like when Cisco got busted for being nothing more than an extension of the NSA, the National Security Agency, and that every single thing that went across the internet was being surveilled, possibly targeted, and attacked when they want. That's what it was created for. And Cisco routers, we've again done long intelligence reports proving all of this to you. So when the CIA wanted to take the power away from Cisco and Cisco servers and their routers and put it into microchips through Intel, they basically crashed Cisco, and Cisco lost billions of dollars overnight because they did a sting showing that they were putting these spy devices into routers. What a lie. They'd been putting them in there all along. So the CIA, the rogue CIA, is in a gigantic battle with the NSA. And we've also described that in great detail for you if you wish to study that. So now, that's the manufacturing part. So where is our manufacturing? All things with a microprocessing chip in it are surveilled by the American government, Israel, and when we, through these dummy companies like Facebook, like Google, went over and Jack Ma, Alibaba, created Alibaba, Ali Google, Ali everything, Ali Money, Ali whatever. What was that? That was the same exact group of people who did it to America and ripped off America and created a weaponized digital form of control through a PSYOPs Big Brother system. Of course, China said, well, they took away our power. We no longer can create the chips that we spy on everybody. So can you come over and use your spy chips to spy on our people? And they said, sure. James Breyer went over there, one of the people who made huge amounts of money off the fake Facebook, as well as all the other social media. So IBM Eclipse Foundation went to China and took their entire laptop business and gave it to China, and that's Lenovo. Well, Trump said, no more Lenovos in this country, you cheating, lying, disgusting digital pigs. No more, unless you have our chips. So Lenovo had to take their chips, which would be created in China, which already had the mechanical engine, the spy tool on it, which were in Lenovo and ZTE and Huawei and all the others. And now Trump is getting rid of all of that, and it collapsed what was happening in China because they had used our systems. China doesn't need dude Zuckerberg to come over to help them with Facebook.
Well, he didn't even do Facebook himself.
Precisely. He's an idiot, and he didn't go to China.
And even if you ask Sheryl Sandberg, she's as much a rip-off artist as anyone at the IBM Eclipse Foundation. They don't know what they're doing. They just know how to steal.
All the IBM Eclipse Foundation people went to China.
Did James P. Chandler III go over there? Where is he hanging out?
He got South America and big parts of Europe, and now he's probably in the Shanghai deal. I'm sure he's in the Shanghai deal with Hillary and Axion because he's directed Hillary since the time she was a child. He was Hillary's teacher. If you want to know the most evil man in America, that would be James P. Chandler III, who has stolen our patents, who has led the war, who has basically been behind DARPA and In-Q-tel from the beginning. And he wrote laws to protect them. So anyway, our tech people who ripped us off, who had, through IBM Eclipse Foundation, ripped off Leader Technology for their trade secrets and their skill to be able to make social networking scalable. They went, IBM Eclipse Foundation, all their people, that means Eric Schmidt, that means James Breyer, that means the representatives of Facebook, Google, Twitter,
and let me just say,
PayPal,
it's not just to make social media
Amazon
scalable. It's anytime, anywhere you go to have a login. When you log in, you're using their trade secrets.
Yes. And so, when they went there, they created a Chinese version of everything that we had, but they made it much tighter. So they didn't use their chips, they used our chips. So, sorry, China, you are going to get stabbed in the back again by the Brits. You are going to be absolutely eviscerated and vampirized and completely ripped to pieces by the Israelis, who are the Zionists, who are working with the Brits, who are working with IBM Eclipse Foundation, who have been working with James P. Chandler and Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and Mueller and Comey. All those same people are down there at Rose Law Firm stealing patents from the early 90s, okay? So you all think that you are going to rip off China. Incorrect.
Well, what about Axiom moving its stuff over there to China, to Shanghai?
Well, that's just, in my opinion, they didn't move any hardware there. That's just where they move their finances. And they too, because they don't understand the Chinese. If they're in Shanghai, they're going to be Shanghaied. They're just stupid to think otherwise. If you're in China, you're going to become Chinese. Look at history. The only one who has ever broken that pattern is Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. And he broke it by getting into an $850 billion deal with them that nothing worked out. And so he said to them, basically, you want $1 trillion deal? I'll give you one, but you got to do it my way, and you got to get rid of all of the fake IBM Eclipse Foundation people because they're cheating, and I'm not going to use your chips, and I'm not going to use their chips. So here's the deal, Mr. President. I'm sorry if you don't know this and if you didn't catch the news the last time, and I know many of your people tell you what we say. You have to stop Intel chips being made by the Zionists in Israel.
Well, what about Netanyahu and all of this?
Well, that's who got it over there. He's the worst Zionist in the country.
Well, I just wanted you to state that.
he's the war hawk of the Likud party who wishes to bomb Iran. He wants to bring us into a war with Iran. That's the reason he will not, Netanyahu will not stop until he bombs Tehran, because he knows that when he bombs their capital city, it will be a full-on, full-scale world war. And that's what he wants. Why do you think he hasn't bombed all those missiles and the embankments of missiles that have been moved in the last month into Syria? He bombed the others.
Does the Privy Council work with Netanyahu?
No, they work against him. He's an idiot. He thinks that he's like Hillary. Hillary thinks that she can outdo the Queen in the Privy Council.
So when you get higher up into this thing we call globalism, there are many factions within it. It's not just one homogenous group trying to take over the world. You have the Zionists, you have Netanyahu, you have the Queen, the Privy Council, you have China. Am I seeing this right?
Yes, and that's correct. And there's fighting going amongst.
But they work together. Do any of them ever work together?
Sometimes they do.
As long as it's to take down their common enemy.
Yeah,
Or to be vultures of America.
Yes, I mean, we use our 5 eyes to spy on any American.
What do citizens around the world, whether you're in Australia, you're in Britain, you're in China, you're citizens, what do we do to take this evil out of the world?
You got to cut off the head of the snake. Hillary took over China. Now, here's the sad reality, China. Sorry, President Xi, you might want to get this translated. You have already been defeated by the Clintons. You didn't notice it because you think you're going to take over Taiwan. Taiwan was the manufacturing capital during the Clinton age. China was where the money was run through. Now, what happened was China was fine until the Clintons came along, and then they became a manufacturing nation owing to us, the people who purchased those products. They're between 45 to 65% self-sufficient in the way you want to look at it if you look at their holdings in other countries. But they cannot survive without us, and their economy can't survive for a minute.
They need a customer.
Correct.
And we are their customer.
And Walmart should be called Clinton Mart, because she got on that board early on, but she is the one who brought the Chinese money into northern Arkansas. And I knew Sam Walton and gave Sam Walton infinite money, and Sam Walton was no genius. That was the Clintons. The Clintons created Walmart, and it was created as a way to get in and to undo America, to take over our manufacturing so that China could think it could control us as a vassal. Same thing China's done with technology, spying on us, intellectual property, Hollywood, Washington, D.C., the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and all of the big tech companies and the corporations. They lure them in, they steal their technology, and pretty soon it's completely Chinese. It's no longer American. So James Breyer has been over there all this time. Now he's Chinese. Do we even know if he's alive? He took that technology to them and wholesale, and he hasn't come back. Eric Schmidt went there, snuck out the back door of North Korea after getting North Korea all set up with satellites, 5G satellites. He sneaks into China to finish the 5G satellite deal with China, as if we didn't know, and then make sure that the Dragonfly project is working so well with facial recognition that he personally makes sure that they apply it and kill 750,000 Muslims in Uyghur in the northwest province of China with his experiment. They put 1 million people into re-education facilities. 3/4 of them are dead now. Half of them died in those facilities. What's China's number one thing they need to do? Get rid of people. That's why they limit how many children you can have. So what do they do now? When Eric Schmidt finally comes back for a very important meeting here in America, he says, oh, no, Dragonfly's not ready to go. It won't be ready to go for years. Lie. It's already going, and it has already killed 750,000 people or more. We don't know how many people have been taken out of the common population of China. But, like that Chinese actress, she finally came forward and paid her taxes. If you mess with China, they just kill you. So sorry, Eric Schmidt. I'm sorry they didn't keep you there and do to you what they've done to James Breyer and anyone else who's gone into China and thought that they were going to take over China. So right now, thank you, Hillary. You set up China for Trump to take them down. Now, China cannot control our currency. They can't control their own stock markets. They can't control their own economy. They can't control their technology. They can't control their people. And now they think that they're going to control Hillary, who controls all the crypto keys and everything on the internet, and have that tax come to Shanghai. I assure you, Hillary has already figured that out, Chinese dudes, Mr. Xi. And you aren't going to win this battle. What you will do is depopulate your country and make everyone homogeneous and give us a warning here in America. Now, we're going to do a talk with Michael McKibben coming up on...
is he still speaking to you?
Sometimes. He's so busy. He sends so much work. It is, I don't know how those people...
He's got an amazing team of researchers there. And that's the way that news is done today. I mean, it's not like we have journalists on the street collecting news. We do it through research and finding the indictable evidence to put these thugs away.
Michael Flynn gave a shout out to us, citizen journalists, for bringing forth the truth so that the president can know the truth so that he can act on good intelligence, not the lies. So here's the deal. Trump is laughing, and he's saying, you know what, Hillary? I'm glad you decided to destroy China before you decided to completely destroy America. Had she become the president, she would have destroyed America. And as we know, she already sold out to China with all tech, and that's the reason nothing in our government wasn't being surveilled by China. Period, folks. Period. And on top of that, please understand that the Talpiot tech startups are all weaponized cyber warriors. And they're certainly in China. They're everywhere, all over the world, and they have the technology that can control the world. And those are Zionists, folks. And they're using the Intel processing chip mechanical engine to do so. And they are actually, don't tell President Xi. They've snuck into China, and eventually they're going to take over communism and turn it into capitalism.